All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Erica Canales. I am with Coas Economic Development Corporation, and I just want to thank you for joining us today for one of our monthly webinars. Today's 7 things employers can do to assist with employees' housing is sponsored by Passumpsic Bank and Resilient Building Group, who are sponsors of our work. And I just want to kind of go over real briefly what our agenda is today. So we're going to meet our panelists who were kind enough to join us and share their experiences here in the North Country. Go over 7 things from low to high investment that employers can be doing, how to accomplish this legally through payroll deductions and whatnot, and then obviously have some time for Q&A with folks. And we will, as I said, be recording this, and it will be posted on our website as well as on our YouTube channel once we are done. All right, so today's panelists, I have Harrison Kanzler from AHEAD. I've got Sharon Kopp from PAC Solutions and HR Realty, Ronna Glines from Weeks Medical Hospital, Scott Lusser from Santa's Village, and pre-recorded, I have Tyler Ray from Front Yard Law and Backyard Concepts, since he accidentally double booked himself today. And this is going to be pretty sort of more of a conversation, and everybody's going to kind of pitch in what is related to them. So obviously the first and foremost when it comes to light lifts as an employer, making those community connections. And so I think a lot of folks have started to see that when it comes to being an employer these days, you're having to think outside the box and do things more so in the real estate side than you had been planned on. And so we like to, I guess, take a minute to share some of the lessons learned, best practices that some of our folks have been doing. And so I would like to maybe open it with Sharon from PAC. Would you want to share what you all have started doing as far as that community connections goes?
Sure. So I apologize. So what we found was part of my job when I was doing the HR was to try to find places for people to live. And so we started renting houses, and then it got to a point where, we were trying to rent 3, 4 houses, and it just didn't make sense for us. So we saw an opportunity to create some apartment buildings on Main Street. One, it's very close to PAC Solutions Manufacturing Company. And so we bought a few properties, and we have created 6 apartments in one building. We're in the process of doing another building, but in the meantime, we've also bought 2 condos and 2 residential just for our employees. But it's not just for our employees, it's for anybody that really needs housing, because it's been such an issue in our town.
Ronna, do you want to share how Weeks Medical Hospital started their community connections?
Sure. So, we realized several years ago that housing was becoming a significant issue for our workforce. And as we were bringing people in, it became more and more challenging for them to find a place to live. So we actually started with community connections. Did we have employees who maybe had rental units or were willing to rent a room in their house, or perhaps had a home that their in-laws had vacated, but they still owned it and they could rent it? As an example, recently we had a nurse practitioner that was moving to the area from Alaska. He was unable to find any housing, but I knew that a neighbor of mine had built a house on the same property, and they were vacating the house they were living in. So I approached them and said, "Hey, you interested in renting?" And they said, "Absolutely, it will help us defray our mortgage." So we were able to secure a lease for him to move into that. In addition to that, we obviously have other community connections. We have one of our employees who has a rental property, and she generally rents it out to our employees short or long term. So we do try to make those community connections, because I think those are the most valuable, because it's hard to say without reaching out to people who might have housing. And sometimes it just needs to be short term, sometimes longer term, but by connecting with the community, we can often find that housing.
Thanks, Rana. Scott, as far as Santa's Village, how did you guys start making those connections? Did we lose Scott?
I don't see Scott. Yeah.
Nope, I think we lost Scott. All right. All right, so besides the community connection side, we're kind of now coming down the funnel. So one of the ways that we also see that businesses can assist is sort of thinking outside the box. And so assisting with security deposits is a way of helping them get into some of these rentals that, you know, Sharon and Rana had been speaking about, because sometimes having that money right up front can be difficult. And you know, so you can definitely look at, you know, as we talked about, the sort of payroll deduction of slowly working back those security deposits with a monthly payback contract. Scott, do we have you back? Nope. Did we lose him again? All right. The other way businesses can also assist is with mortgage assistance. So as CDC being sort of in the lending side of things, this is a place where, you know, if you've got sort of that long-term employee or somebody that you're really trying to get here, businesses have the ability to be a sort of silent or co-signer on a mortgage for employees that otherwise, you know, might not have those financial wherewithal at this point to make that happen. So just another way of looking at if you know, a company is trying to find a way to help them, this is one of those other opportunities. As far as some of your larger businesses, if you've got some reserve funds, you're looking to do some wealth management, you could also create a reserve loan fund to also help create these types of agreements. And a lot of times those investments can be a little bit better than just sticking them away in your high interest savings accounts. And again, it helps support your employees and the community. And so it's just another sort of outside the box way of thinking about using your funding to help an employee and also get a return on it. As always, paying higher wages is a nice way to look at things. As we all know, we've been, you know, sort of been very aware of what it means to afford to live. You know, for those that aren't aware, you know, just a single full-time employee needs to make a minimum of about $56,000 in order to live in the region. And I'm going to pass it over to Harrison, who can kind of speak more on this side of things with the work he does with the HED.
Sure. Thanks so much. So numbers, here we go. So first of all, I wanted to just talk about that one piece there. When we talk about like being able to afford housing, Housing and Urban Development says that you shouldn't be spending more than 30% of your gross income on housing. So when we say that 56,000 number, that means that you can afford whatever other debts and everything you have, but also afford your housing, and it's not going to be more than 30% of your income to do that. So whenever we're talking about rents and we're talking about affordability, we're actually talking about gross rent. So any numbers in here that I'm going to go over that we're talking about for rentals should include, those figures include heat, water, and electricity. And I know this can be confusing and it can be annoying because we talk about these numbers, but typically as a landlord, you are renting, this is your rent, you have to pay all the utilities. But the numbers I'm talking about, it those numbers are including utilities. So just bear that in mind as we walk through this. But another thing that is difficult, thankfully, Erica pointed out very well, is that this number changes depending on who it is that we're talking about. So you can see across the top, we have different scenarios for a family of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And what this table is it actually was from Bureau of Labor Statistics, and this goes over wage information for Coos County as well as employment information. So for instance, if we're talking about this single individual, area median income for a household of 1 is $66,200, which is again about $10,000 more than that figure we were talking about you need in order to live, to find reasonable housing. They're likely going to be working in accommodation or food services. It's about 20% of people who are employed in Coos County. But that average wage is actually coming out about $34,000 a year. So obviously we have a pretty big discrepancy between what the area median is and what they're earning, and also between what they're going to be needing in order to afford that housing piece. So that's about 51% of the area median income is what they're earning. For affordable housing purposes, that's where we target. We're typically targeting folks who are earning between 50 and 60% of the area median income. So a lot of the HUD housing is specifically looking to house these folks, right? Folks who are making somewhere between probably $30,000 and $60,000 a year on a single income, probably, and obviously more than that on a dual income, as we'll talk about in a minute. But one thing I really wanted to highlight in here, we don't have to go over the whole thing, but there's one piece I think that's really important from this slide, and we'll talk about it in the next slide as well, is there's obviously a difference between whether or not your folks are going to be renting or your people are going to be buying. For starters, it's hard to get into the rental market right now unless you've made those community connections. So the employers who have done that, fantastic job. It's a great first step in order to find housing for folks. But then you look at more of those middle management, upper tier positions that you're looking to fill. Those people might be looking to buy. And purchase can be pretty tough too. As you can see, that median sale price from Q3 of 2022 in Coos County is straight across the board. You know, the median sale price for a home was $228,500, which isn't that bad, especially if you look at like a family of 3, family of 4. It's not that far off from what they should be making if they're meeting the area median anyway. But the stock is so low that it's really challenging for folks to find somewhere. So looking to find a situation where you can put people up, get them in a rental while they have time to find housing is a great idea. If they're going to be a first-time home buyer, send them to us. HUD facilitates first-time home buyer classes, and a lot of those courses come with a added financial benefit to the people who take the class, where they get some sort of either down payment assistance, or they get closing costs covered through the products that they get by through the mortgage products they get by taking our classes. So definitely, if any of your employees are looking to get into a home and it would be their first home, send them to a HUD. The class is free. They don't have to pay anything for it, and they're going to get a bunch on the other end. So if you could go to the next slide, we'll talk about that a little more as well.
And the other thing to think about real quick too is if you can combine what you're offering with some of the things that we started talking about in the earlier slides. I mean, when you can put those things together, it really becomes a powerful package.
Absolutely. And that's part of what I really wanted to talk about here. So this is that same information. There's a little bit of difference, but this is kind of highlighting for you what families you're employing, what folks might look like, and kind of give you a realistic picture of what their income is, what their financial situation is, and what they could buy. One of the things as a housing advocate that I actually struggle with is that a lot of times when we're looking at these, if you look at kind of that lone line towards the bottom on each one of them, it says can afford to purchase a home valued up to, and then it gives it for each family. All of this was calculated using with the idea that these people have a 5% down payment on the home that they're purchasing. And that is where I start to have an issue, because I want to try to base this in reality. And I think that we're seeing more and more people are putting 0% down, or they're only putting, 1 or 2% down. They're getting very little down on their homes. And so that is going to drastically change what their month to month is as far as being able to afford these homes. And so I wanted to put some, I had this data done up for us by some folks we work with. And then I actually went back and said, hey, I want to make this a bit more real, which is why I added what that 5% down is at the bottom. So in reality, for this single individual who's making $34,000 a year, for them to put a 5% down payment, we're assuming they've got $4,200 of liquid sitting in their bank account, which, considering when we look at other statistics that most people can't afford a $400 emergency expense, it draws me to say, do they actually have that $4,000? Is it realistic to assume that someone in our workforce is going to be able to put a 5% down payment on a home in order for them to get in? And so that's where, back to Erica's point, there's immense power in going through a first-time home buyer course and getting access to those benefits that they get by taking one of those courses. And AHEAD's not the only one that does them. You talk to the real estate agencies, talk to the banks. They can connect you with it as well. We have it and we cover all of the North Country, so it's obviously an easy pitch. But we get paid by the real estate companies and the banks to do it, so they will probably just tell you to come to us as well. But also, if you look at that family of two, the family of three, family of four, it's really peaking just around $10,000. And there was a study that was done by the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies that looked at various countries in the English-speaking world specifically and what they have for down payment assistance programs. Every one of them has it except for the United States, of course. And the study showed that in the US market, a 10% down or a $10,000 down payment assistance plan would put about 70% of first-time home buyers over the margin into being able to afford the houses that they're looking at. So again, is this something that you're going to offer for everyone? No, definitely not. But if you're able to even put together, a package for relocation that has a down payment assistance portion of it, something like that with a first-time home buyer class, you can end up setting them up for a very strong financial situation, which is going to provide a lot of longevity on your end as far as keeping those kind of, again, mid to higher level tier employees around for a lot longer. And yeah, so I think that, definitely those are things that you can look at. The first-time home buyer class, send your employees to it. That's no cost to them. It's no cost to you. Definitely a great opportunity to get some financial assistance for them as far as the home purchase. And again, if you have the ability to do it, that down payment assistance can go a really long way to keeping folks around. And that's all for me. You're muted.
Thanks. Sorry about that. Scott, are you back on?
I
Hey.
am.
All right, perfect. Finally got you. So just because
Yes.
I didn't want to miss that opportunity to hear about what Santa's Village was doing. We were talking about community connections. And so I just wanted to kind of cut back to you real quickly of, what were some of the things that Santa's Village has done to try to, have those opportunities for your employees.
Right. So what Santa's Village has done was they invested in 2 properties in Lancaster. So we have housing to put up 29 individuals. We provide them with housing. It's $75 a week. Is what we charge. It comes out of their paycheck. And so if they sign on for like our summer season, and if they stay until the fall, we charge them $75, but then we're going to give them $50 a week back if they stay and help us out. So what we do is we bought a van and a house, 2 houses, and we give them transportation back and forth to work. And it's worked out well. We got a, right now as it stands, they keep arriving within the next couple of weeks. Housing, we pay them an hourly wage, which can be 40 hours and more. And we've got two different companies that we work with there. Basically, they kind of pick if they want North Country, they want Maine, they want New Hampshire, White Mountains. So what we do is they apply, we interview them, then we sign a contract, and they pay to come here. And then at the end of their time, they have money to bring back and get themselves, ahead of the game. So
Nice.
it's a win-win situation because, as we know, the market is kind of tough. But we're in a good place now because of having these in our pocket,
Yep. Well, and that's kind of a nice lead in as far
Yeah,
as sort of the master lease. This concept originally came, I don't know if it's originally, but how I became familiar with it was through the ski industries. And so this a master lease model is sort of where the business is the one that's engaging in these long-term leases with property owners. For up here in the North Country, I think there are a lot of empty homes, Airbnbs and things like that, potentially could be opened up to businesses, because there's that security knowing that there's going to be payment, there's going to be somebody taking care of it, especially if they don't live in the area. And so I'm just going to play a really quick video that just kind of talks about how this particular ski resort did it. That's a model that, any one of our businesses could definitely take on, especially if, they have a small or a large employee population. So I couldn't cut it, so just bear with me a second. I'll just cue it up real quick.
Here at Tawadon, our employee housing is a big concern for us, particularly these last few years. So about 3 years ago, when we started noticing a shortfall in available housing in the rental market, particularly, that really impacted first our international employees, our J1 employees in the wintertime, where they were able to find available housing here. Many of them left after a short period of time. We really got into a mode of helping them solve the problem with finding affordable housing here in the community.
So we're currently looking at two different aspects. One is a long-term solution to our housing situation, and then also we have a short-term solution, which is this master lease program. By having the backing of Tahoe Donner, we're really able to alleviate, I think, a lot of the fears that these homeowners have. We essentially become property managers. We are collecting the rent. We are checking on the houses. We do a thorough inspection once a month. Visually, we're looking every single day at the house as we provide transportation services for our employees. So we've seen a change. Originally, as we tried to go get different properties, it was a lot of work. This year, we probably looked at about 40 different properties, everywhere from simply just a phone call to actually going to the property and looking at it. But we've also had some people that are contacting us, which I think shows the success of our program and what we do to get this rolling and off the ground. We've learned a lot, I guess, through trial and error, but I'd like to share, maybe 5 things that I think are really helpful. You need to have someone who can devote a lot of time to it. We currently have essentially 3 people working on it. We have a housing coordinator, the director of operations and the assistant director of operations. You need to have the right owner, preferably someone who's perhaps rented their property before. You need to have a strong lease agreement and license agreement, which we've created with our or for our employees. And communication. Communication is perhaps the most key element here. So that's communication with the owner of the property, with the tenants, as well as the neighbors in the community in general.
So long-term in the community of Truckee, the greater region here of Truckee, North Tahoe, there's over 33,000 housing units. And half of those units are vacant most of the year. So working with those owners and working with fellow businesses in the community, if we can find a way to unlock a certain level of capacity for our seasonal employees, if we can find a long-term strategy to give some security to the owners, to the neighbors, and to the businesses here, provide our employee teams solid employee seasonal housing, that would be tremendous for all this community.
I've been here in Human Resources for about 7 years.
So as you can see, we're not the only ones that are struggling with this. And I thought that was just a great example. It could almost insert, Coos County or any community in our, ski community into that. Harrison, do you have anything else that you might want to share about sort of the master lease process from your knowledge?
Sure. So the way that they're talking about it is more that you as the business owner become the property manager because you're checking in on your staff. They're doing it through a transportation program. There's the general concept, obviously, like they said, is that you are the tenant and then you're essentially subletting to your employees, but they're guaranteeing the rent through you. You can obviously collect it through payroll deductions or whatever, but the rent is coming from the employer, not from the employees themselves. Another kind of model of that as well is if there's partnership with an organization like Ahead or any other property management department, if we have a bunch of open units and we can lease a block of them to you as the employer, then you can put your employees in and out as you need to, and we manage the property for you. But it is a guarantee for us that, again, we're getting that rent, we're getting the security deposits, in theory that the units are being taken care of because you are vetting essentially our residents by being the employer and hiring quality employees. And it also provides some loss mitigation for us and some security for you, because if there is a month where you're between employees, you do still have to pay us the rent for that unit. So we don't have loss on the unit, but you also have a landing pad for your new incoming employee. So there is that other way of doing it. Unfortunately, right now, we don't have enough commercial units to be able to offer that. But we are looking into that hopefully for the future, but it's certainly something that could be set up as kind of a different model with the same concept. So.
Yeah, and Rana, I don't know that you guys are doing exactly a master lease, but I know you guys are doing some other forward-thinking things on that front.
Yeah, it's not exactly a master lease, but we are leasing properties from various owners and putting our employees in those properties. So sometimes we're giving them a stipend to cover rental for a period of time after they arrive. So we're just simply paying the rent. And in other cases, they're paying the rent to us, but we're covering the rent with the landlord. So it's not really a master lease because we're not assuming the property management responsibilities, but we are leasing multiple properties at this point for our workforce.
And Sharon, what about you guys?
So I would say we're doing the same thing. So like Rona, we're giving, we have one employee, we're doing 6 months, hey, rent free in one of our apartments, kind of as to, hey, come stay here, create your roots here. And it's gone so far as, the partners have been a co-signer on a home for one of the employees and their family that we moved up here, and then assisted in buying some land so another family could set their roots here. So we are doing a lot of that as well, along with, a moving stipend. We'll give you $5,000 towards moving costs, and then 3 months, rent free at one of our locations.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we essentially do the same thing. So we will give employees a stipend for relocation. And we do allow them to use both the rental assistance stipend and the relocation stipend toward the purchase of a home. So let's say that they find a house. We actually just had somebody who managed to find a home before they moved. So we let them use both of those stipends toward their closing costs and down payment.
Very nice. And, you know, obviously one of the heavier burdens in investments is buying and building, you know, for a business and putting in that capital into the community. And Sharon, I think you guys definitely have been doing that. You want to share a little bit of those recent investments?
Certainly, it's been very difficult because what we were quoted initially has literally doubled in cost. So at this point, they're not even doing it to even get their money back, but that's really difficult when you're becoming negative every month because you're trying to keep the costs where the employees can afford it, but it's not affordable at this point to build. And so now we're slowing down on some of the construction because of those reasons, because it's cost us literally double than what we set out to do.
Yeah, and Harrison, you guys sometimes also do building as well, correct?
Yes, and yeah, construction costs are crazy right now. You know, we frequently get asked, why aren't you doing more? And that's, you know, Sharon, I think, nailed it. I mean, we will get a quote from a contractor, and we have to provide a quote for various federal funding or grant funding that we apply for construction. And between the time that, you know, we ask them for the quote and the time that that funding actually comes through, you know, the quote's out the window and it's going to be a whole lot more money, but all the funding we got was predicated on that previous quote. So it can be really hard. And with construction and labor costs where they are, even rehab is a tough nut to crack right now. You know, thankfully there's some stuff going through on the state level that can help with that. But certainly, you know, it's a matter of trying to leverage what funds you can. Unfortunately, that is a bit easier on our end as a nonprofit. A lot of funding that is available out there either has to be through partnership with a municipality, or you have to be a nonprofit. There's not a ton out there for private development to get funded. Invest New Hampshire, it was that was used up. They're hoping for a second round, but we'll see what happens with that. It's, I believe, caught up in the budget discussions right now at the state level. So hopefully if some more money comes through for that, certainly Sharon, I would recommend you try to put in for that to help out with the efforts that you guys have going on. But anyone else, you know, if you've got a project lined up, that's a good stop for getting some funding to make these things a reality.
Well, and I can definitely share working with Sharon on that. I think, Sharon, would you say, and it's about making sure that project, and from your experiences, if you're even thinking about going after any of that type of money, the project has to literally be ready to go, and all funds have been exhausted. And what was some other feedback that you had gotten on that you might be able to share with other businesses?
Oh,
pursue
goodness.
Or
Nonprofit.
nonprofit. Yep. Thanks, Steve.
Yes. Yep. I will tell you, it's been very difficult. It's been very difficult dealing with the state in that way, meaning, you know, you think you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's, and just getting feedback has been very difficult as to do, hey, have we done this all correctly? So it's not an easy fix because there's so many people applying for that. I want to say there was like 130 applicants for, I don't even remember how many positions, but it was very difficult. And we thought we would be in a good running because of the fact of what we're doing and trying to bring employees up here. And it just, we were not one that was selected.
Yeah. So don't count your chickens before you're hatched, and make sure if it's icing on the cake if it happens, but you know, just be prepared otherwise.
Right.
So,
And I've got one last plug to throw in here, actually, now that we're talking about it. We also have a new program that we're running in kind of partnership with the Tillotson, Neil and Louise Tillotson Foundation, which is that HEAD will work with any private landowner, business owner, town, community group, what it doesn't matter. If you're in Coos County and you want to build something that is, kind of employee housing, workforce housing, you can come talk to us at HEAD, and our development team will work with you on pre-development. So you can get, again, if you're that feedback, we'll tell you here is what, could potentially work within your community based on all of the requirements of your municipality or where the land is. But we'll also give you a rough idea of what it would qualify for as far as funding federally, at the state, privately, whatever. We'll help you come up with a pro forma for the project. We'll help you come up with a capital stack for the project. We'll help you develop RFPs that you can put out to make sure you're getting architects, engineers, contractors, all that stuff you're going to need to make it happen. And we do that all at absolutely zero cost to you. You just let us know, and we will get some meetings set up and we will help you out. So it's a free service that we're offering through all of Coos County. So you want to do this, let us know. We'll help you as far as we can.
that's great. I was not aware of that. So that was a
Great. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's huge.
So as I said, Tyler wasn't able to be here with us today. And so his job was to kind of bring this issue home. And from a legal standpoint, he's got some things he wanted to share with us. And so I am going to play his video on this, if I can.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Tyler Ray. I'm a business attorney for Front Yard Law and owner of Front Yard as well as Backyard Concepts. We offer professional services to the outdoor recreation industry. However, today's conversation, workforce housing, covers any industry. It probably comes up in every conversation, and so we're going to tackle this conversation head on. Thanks to Erica for inviting me on today, and hopefully we get a little bit out of this. If you have any follow-up questions, I'll leave my email at the end so you can reach out to me. So let's begin. Take the bull by the horn. Let's just start right at the top. I hate to break it to everyone, but yes, there's money, there's liquidity in the markets, but those white knights are challenging and they're likely not arriving on your doorstep anytime soon. So it's your obligation to figure out how to make this work for you, to save your own business and to enhance the resiliency of your business, and also to enhance and attract prospective employees and even retain existing employees. And that solution is to offer free or discounted lodging to employees. Step up to stay ahead, right? So employees need to step up here. Live free or die, self-sufficiency, you name it. Employer provided housing provides channel to help employees with the cost of housing. It's, as I said, enhancement to an employment package, and it's really a fringe benefit, no different than giving a cell phone to an employee or company car, health insurance, etc. It is an inducement as part of the performance of the job. Now, getting into how does this work? Let's just start out. What are the different ways employers can sweeten the pot, let's say, to attract employees and provide some housing? You can assist with down payments, provide a grant, you can cover closing costs, you can offer a loan that they repay over the period of their employment. That accelerates if it terminates. You can offer homeownership counseling, construction like ski resorts. Today we'll talk lightly on master leases. That's when the landlord, or excuse me, the employer becomes the tenant and then subleases to employees, and so they play both sides of the fence. Talk about some of the implications of that, as well as rental subsidies. That's the important part of the discussion today. The paths to employee housing there's really two paths. One is an allowance and one is employer-sponsored programs. The allowance is like, here's a stipend, good luck, hope you spend it on housing. You may have a large roster of employees, and so offering that choice is important. On a smaller scale, maybe you don't offer an allowance, you just have a program, but you have to determine whether you need employers employees to live there, or if it's just a benefit that can also be declined. If there is a choice, it's important to say, we'll talk about this more in a moment, but it's important to say that the lodging is taxable because of there is a choice. And you can't just pay someone in lieu of wages with housing. That doesn't work. You can't pay someone to, you just can't pay someone because of that fact. There has to be some other compensation there as well. So what are the nuts and bolts? Well, a written agreement is required. That's really the most important thing in my view right now to get out to you, to communicate that to you, is that just like any benefit, that there's going to be some sort of deduction in a paycheck. The employer needs that in writing and needs to define what that looks like. And the reason that's important, like I said, with the
Oops.
employee, if something ends bad, I always think of worst case scenarios. If things end up poorly, you'll be able to go into that personnel file, pull out this slip of paper that says, I know you are alleging that we're not allowed to deduct from your paycheck, but you signed this agreement. This was our arrangement. Yada yada. Employees can do wacky things, and there's plenty of arenas for them to challenge employers, and so this is one way to create a what we like to call in the legal world an affirmative defense. Let's say, where as long as you have this agreement, something in writing, you're good to go. How do you do it? Well, you can, as long as there's some sort of consistent basis and some agreed upon rollout, that's how you do it. So whether it's syncing up with your regular payroll, if there's a stipend, or doing something on a monthly basis, more typical to housing, do it that way. In an agreement, you should state the consideration that this is, they are performing a job for you, and this is an inducement to the job, is providing the rental arrangement. So that's an important part. Consideration is, in legal terms, it's an exchange of value. So in contract law, you have an offer, acceptance, and consideration. So here it's the exchange of value. One is performing a job, and the other is receiving the benefits of that getting done. And so that's where the rental as a benefit comes in. Final point here on the nuts and bolts, and we'll take just one more slight deeper dive. Determination. Because many of you are thinking, how do I get in? I get in myself into this mess and then I'm stuck, right? It's like an eviction. Not so much. Employees are at will, right? Or at least that's, I assume that's, they don't have to be, they could be under contract, but let's say in this situation, they're at will. And so they would be at will in both employment and in housing. We'll talk about what that really means. So legal relationship. You have to have the contract, talked about that. Here's an important distinction. There's no tenancy created, okay? This is not a lease agreement. You're not subject to landlord-tenant laws. Very important point. It's a license. And the reason license is the key technical word is because it's revocable, okay? It's terminable. It doesn't last forever. There's a limited duration. And that's what's required to occupy the premises. So that's what you have to have in your agreements. You can do anything from adjusting the terms, say with 30 days notice. You have a lot of flexibility. You could adjust the terms. Let's say you have an employee that thinks it's cool to open their windows and crank the heat to 80 degrees in the middle of January. You don't have to pay for that, okay? So you could change terms that all of a sudden you realize, geez, you know what? I'm not going to be responsible for that. You are. And that's how you do that. Holdovers or squatters, you can, instead of going down the eviction road, remember they're not a tenant. There would be a licensee. So you would have a provision that if they are a holdover, there's a per day rental liquidated damages clause, it's called. So you come up with a fee per day. It's not rent. And so that is the incentive to get them out. In a master lease, a couple of important points, and I'll just be brief, but you gotta be careful with any pass on legal provisions. If you're, required to have certain levels of insurance, then you should pass those insurance obligations to some degree to the employee, something that's reasonable, right? Something that's, and insurance maybe is not the best example. a simple example would be, just let's just say rent, right? X amount of dollars a month that you have to pay for a building, say with 5 apartments. Whatever you're turning around and charging the employee or whatever the arrangement is. If your goal is to break even, for example, make sure you're breaking even, you're passing on what you're obligated to, right? So just some basic stuff. You need to have the right to sub license. That's incredibly important. If all of a sudden you sign the master lease and you don't have that right to sub license, then you're stuck with a big with no one able to go in. So that's certainly unlikely, but it's worth mentioning. You're likely also going to be required to guarantee the lease, or the license rather. So just a couple of final points. Fringe benefits are typically taxable. Like I mentioned earlier, if it's a choice, it's certainly taxable. You know, if you have what's an example, like say low number, like say rent $700. Yes, I know that's not realistic. I should probably use another number, but I already said it. So $700, you pay $300, the employer pays $400. 400 times 12, 4,800 over a course of a year. That's the taxable income that goes on your employees' W-2s. Now, I have situations where non-taxable housing exceptions, and the best example here, these are the 3 criteria. It's on the premises, it's offered for convenience, and it's a condition of employment. Like a fishing or guiding service, for example. Say you stay in a cabin, wake up early, the clients come in. That's probably a good example of where this plays out. So overall, solutions in sight, no doubt. Employers can solve this crisis on your own. As I said, live free or die. We could do this. The white knight's hanging back, so you got to do it on your own. Just remember, a written agreement is required. You can have plenty of protections in a housing agreement, and that there are some tax implications. If you'd like to discuss this a little bit more, you can reach out to me at tyler@backyardconcept.org. And best of luck with the rest of the summer and pushing this through. Thanks, Erica, and hope everyone has a great day.
All right. So I thought that was really great that he could give us at least some of that.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Tyler Ray.
All right.
I'm a business attorney for.
How do I get to the next slide? There we go. So yeah, I thought that was a nice summary on, you know, kind of getting the nuts and bolts on and actually how to make that happen. And I would really encourage anybody who wants that employment law side of things to reach out to Tyler. He's very experienced in that type of work, and making sure if you do it, you do it right and you don't get stuck. So I just want to say thank you again to our panelists for joining us today, sharing the amazing work that they are doing in their communities and helping our workforce. And hopefully some other folks will be on or listening or playing this back at a later time, and it will inspire them to do other great things here in the community. I want to thank you all for joining us, and at this time ask if anybody has any questions, to just go ahead and ask them. All right. Well, I thank you again, everybody, for joining us. This will be posted, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. So thanks.
Thank you, Erica.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Erica. Thank you
This
all.
is great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Erica.
Thanks, Scott.